Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Stephen King podcast. This is episode 78, so we're closing in on 80. And as usual, we have a really packed episode for you. We are going to give you the latest news. We're going to talk about the upcoming tour that Stephen and Owen are going to do to promote Sleeping Beauty. We're going to talk about the last episode of The Mist and what we thought about that. We're going to talk about very thick Dark Tower book that has to do with the movie. And we are going to talk about It, of course, that had its premiere. And we'll be talking a lot about that. So it's going to be fun to finally see what it was and what we thought about it.
Hear, hear.
And as usual, Louis here with me. Hello.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Happy It movie weekend.
Yeah. So let's kick it off with the news.
Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the death room.
Okay, and first up is, even though we've gotten the two big movies out in the cinemas now, of course, that being The Dark Tower and It, that doesn't mean it's the end of Stephen King adaptations on the screen. This time it'll be on your home screen, but we do have a release date for 1922, which is coming out on Netflix, and that will be on October 20th, 2017, and looking forward to that. The pictures look really good. Thomas Jane, who was really good in The Mist, and I've quite enjoyed him on other things as well. This looks pretty creepy, and I like the artwork that they've got for it. This is just one of two Stephen King adaptations that's coming to a streaming service this year.
Exactly. And the second one is, of course, Gerald's Game, that has finally gotten a release date. We have known about this movie being done for quite some time now, and it's been shown on some film festivals, I think, but now it's heading for Netflix. We are having it in September 29th, and we also got the first trailer. So did you watch the trailer?
I did, and it looks very intriguing, and we can see in the trailer how he is going to approach the solitary nature of the main character's predicaments. Basically, other characters are going to be talking to her, I guess, as she gets kind of delirious and whatnot. So it looks like it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I must say I'm impressed with it, and I think they have solved the problems. At least it looks like it, that we were a little bit worried about. Was she going to be naked? No, she's not. And as you say, how are they going to solve all this with her talking and seeing characters that's not there? And so I think they're going to pull this off. And most people seem very positive to the trailer. I've heard some people thinking that Gerald is too fit. This should be more heavyweight. And
yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's really a problem. I seem to remember that he is more heavyset in the book, but I don't think that's going to matter much to the plot anyway. No. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I don't see that as a problem either, that he's too fit. I mean, there was, I don't know if you ever heard of the fitness guy, Lord Percival, who was a big fitness person. He died of a heart attack, and he was just around 50 as well. So that's something that's hereditary sometimes too. So it's not just, your physical condition. It's also genetics that plays a large part into that. I was really wondering how he's going to resolve that problem, and I'm actually really glad to see that Bruce Greenwood will be playing a bigger part in the movie, because I really like him as an actor, and it would be kind of a shame to have him there just for the first 5-10 minutes and then dead, and he's not going to be around anymore. So
Yep.
It'll be interesting. And I just wonder, again, with all adaptations, how closely this story is going to follow the book. Are we going to get some of the creepy characters from the book that we're hoping to see that may or may not show up in this adaptation? We're not sure yet.
Yeah. I found it quite interesting in the trailer that they included the solar eclipse.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the connection to Dolores Claiborne. So that's quite interesting that they had that in there. I think that could have been one of those things that they could cut out if they wanted to. So
yep.
I think it's interesting that it's still there.
Yep. And we also know the length of the movie too, right?
Yes, 1 hour 43 minutes. So it's about what to expect from a movie.
Yeah.
Except the Dark Tower, who was shorter, of course.
Yes, a sore point for us all.
Yeah.
September 29th, that's not too far away either.
No.
So that's good.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So September, October, there you go, folks. And then we have the next project, which is the Hulu TV series Castle Rock. Still not sure if we have an air date for that yet.
No, it's just 2018. It hasn't gotten a specific date yet.
So that's good. We've got something to look forward to for 2018 beyond the Outsider book that Stephen King has referenced, which we don't know too much about yet. But we have a couple of news articles linked up at Hans' site. If you go there, you can see that they are filming Castle Rock in Orange County, California, I believe that is. Yeah. And you can see if they have promotional material for the real estate agent, Molly Strand, who's the character that we know is the lead in this. And it's a good, it's got a nice little play on Stephen King. It says, Molly Strand, sales representative, live like a king. So that I like that. That's clever. We also know, and really exciting news for anybody who's a Lost fan and seen him maybe in Millennium, or I believe he was in the X-Files Fight the Future movie too at the beginning when the bomb blew up. He set off the bomb as Terry O'Quinn, Mr. John Locke himself from Lost. Yeah. So, and of course, he also has a previous Stephen King connection in that he played the sheriff in Silver Bullet. So maybe we're going to get a werewolf connection of some type in Castle Rock. Again, we're speculating because we don't really know what that series is going to cover. And if all these actors who have previous experience with Stephen King material, whether they're going to have some sort of references to their previous appearances. But I'm a big Terry O'Quinn fan. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I'm really looking forward to him in this series.
Yeah, and I think it will be interesting because they are heading for the New York Comic Con.
Right.
Takes place on October 8th. And my guess is that we might get something new there. Maybe a new trailer, teaser, or maybe even an premiere date for it. So that should be interesting. And we will, of course, keep you updated on what's mentioned there. But usually some kind of news is coming out when they attend the Comic Cons and stuff like that.
Yes. It says that there will be an exclusive video presentation, but it's from 3 to 3:40 Sunday, October 8th. So if you're going to the New York Comic Con, you can check that out. It doesn't specifically say who's going to be there because it just says series stars and producers, but hopefully J.J. Abrams himself and some of these new cast members, Melanie Linsky, who is the real estate agent that plays the real estate agent I was talking about, Andre Holland, Bill Skarsgård, who we will talk about later in the podcast from It, and of course Sissy Spacek. So that would be a pretty awesome panel if all those people showed up. So hopefully some of our listeners out there will attend that panel and maybe be able to provide us with some footage or an update as to what they thought of the panel.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and moving on. An interesting interview with Pennywise himself, Bill Skarsgård, was posted, and unfortunately I see now that YouTube has removed the interview. Strange, because that was no official interview, so I don't know why they removed that one. But it was interesting to hear him talk about playing Pennywise and everything like that. So, but we are talking more about Pennywise later on, so we'll just skip that now and talk more about that later.
Okay, so moving out of the TV and film era, we're going back into book and business side of things, and we have this report that I found very interesting that came from Bloody Disgusting, and that Stephen King is actively pursuing getting his rights back to some of the movie licenses to some of his earlier works. Specifically mentioned in the article was The Dead Zone, Cujo, Creepshow, Children of the Corn, Cat's Eye, and Firestarter. So the termination notices were mailed on August 31st, 2016. So this has already been in the works for a while, happened last year, and will be effective starting September 1st, 2018. So King will have regained full rights to his stories. I don't pretend to understand the business side of things. I assume that he had to pay to get these rights back, or maybe there was a constant renewal deal that he has decided at this time he is not going to accept the renewal, and I guess he was being paid something to extend the renewal every year. He's basically telling the rights holders of these various movie properties that come September 1st, 2018, he is no longer going to allow them to continue to make movies, and he's not taking any further payment for it. So, but this is only for the US, so it even gets more complicated. So if somebody wanted to make the movie and distribute it outside, release it outside of the US, I guess they could still do that. Acquiring the rights to the US movie rights is his first step, and he might go after the global ones afterwards. But it would be pretty difficult, I would think, for a movie company to do any of these properties and not be able to release it within the US.
Yeah.
Like it's still a pretty big movie market, probably the second biggest next to China. So I guess he figures if he does that, that pretty well kills any other projects outside of the US. So interesting. I'm assuming that he wants to have these properties tidied up so that his estate can manage these things properly after he's no longer with us. That sounds morbid, but I think that's what he's trying to do here.
Yeah, and maybe he's tired of seeing all these Children of the Corn movies coming out and want to stop that maybe. So,
yeah.
But I think maybe we'll do a Swedish Children of the Corn movie.
Yeah,
we're not going to do that, I think. But there are one movie left in the Children of the Corn franchise for those who want to see that one. It hasn't been released yet, but it has been filmed. So that one will definitely be able to be released if the company want to release it. So we're going to see what's happening with that one. Okay, moving on to books. The first one is a very special edition of It, and it's being done by the Dragon Rebound edition. And you might remember we've spoken about a version of Eyes of the Dragon. That was what it is that they do a different cover for it and keep the first. They take a first edition, remove the cover and do a different cover for it. And we have seen the Eyes of the Dragon book, which is beautiful. And now the same company is doing It, and they're doing a new cover and a box that it will come in. And the box, the lid of the box is actually a sewer, what's it called?
Great.
Yeah. So that will be, and that is of real iron. So they have really made it from the real thing. And that will be the cover for the box. Right. And it's an amazing book. Personally, I will not be able to buy it because I would have to sell my kids to get money for postage. Because that book and the box and that lid has to weigh kilos. So I don't know if it's even possible to send it through mail to Sweden, but it's a nice book. And if you get it, you have to have a strong bookcase to place it in, because it will be a heavy one.
Yeah, for sure. Is that a grate really made out of steel, or is that just? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, it is. And go to their site, you can see how they did it and how they are. What's it called when they do? They even have a welder, or I don't know what the proper name of it is, but
welder. Yep.
Yeah, who is actually doing these covers in steel? So.
Wow.
Cold rolled steel box with cast iron sewer grate cover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's even photos when they are melting iron and sparks is flying and stuff like that. So it's for real.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. And the tray is also steel and suede lined. Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
That's.
That is something.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. Yeah. If you go to the site, there's a long scrolling page showing all the people involved in the creation of this, and plus all the artwork, paper boats, and everything. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. That has to be one of the most unique limited editions out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's sold out as well. So
yeah, there you have it.
At a sticker price of $14.75 US. That's amazing.
Yeah. And postage on that is probably as much as the book itself.
Wow. That is damn impressive, though, I got to say. Wow. Amazing. Yeah. So if you're a collector, I assume that you've already got your reservation in for this because that is a very impressive looking book.
Yep.
Alrighty, so then the last thing, which will tie nicely into one of the things that we're going to talk about later on in the podcast, is Sleeping Beauty. The audiobook edition has a bonus, and that will be a conversation with Stephen and Owen King as they talk about the book. So I guess the big question is, how long will this conversation be?
Yeah.
Will it be as long as one of their book tour conversations, or is it just going to be a 10, 15-minute clip of something like that? So hopefully we'll get more details as we get closer to the release of the book, which is not that far away, right?
No, 26th.
26th. So, wow, that's going to be a busy week.
Yeah.
Last week of September, you get the book, Sleeping Beauties, plus you get 1922. So there you go. Busy week.
Yeah. No, we get
Gerald's Game. Sorry.
22 is in October.
Sorry. Got that backwards.
Yeah, and I think I'm just guessing and speculating here, but on the audio version of Gwendy's Button Box, there was a similar discussion between King and Richard Chismer, who wrote that book.
Right.
And it was a short discussion where they talked a little bit about how they wrote the book. So I'm guessing that this will be quite short, maybe 5-10 minutes tops.
Okay.
But that's just a guess from my side. I don't know. I don't think it will be very long. Or definitely not as long as when they go on tour.
Yeah, still a nice little bonus though.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and we actually have one more news that came in late last night, actually, and that is that there is a new Stephen King story out called Thin Scenery, and this is actually a story written as a play, and it's in the summer 2017 issue of. And I'm going to let you pronounce that name because I don't think I can do that.
Okay. Just a sec. I have to call it up.
Plowshare.
Plowshare.
Or something.
Plowshare.
Yeah. And I didn't know what, I really don't know still what that is. But it seems like there's a collection of different stories from different authors. And once a year, some more famous author is editing it. And this time it's Stuart Onan. We know from having collaborated with Stephen King earlier. And Stephen King has a story in it called Thin Scenery. So that's written like a stage play. Mm-hmm. So that should be interesting to check out. I haven't seen it yet. There's a teaser for one page online.
Yeah. You can also go to Amazon and purchase it online. Amazon.com has it for the Kindle.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I actually think that if you go to their site, mm-hmm. I don't know what the publisher is.
It's an academic.
Yeah, if you go there, I think you can get it for, I think it was $2 cheaper than Amazon.
Oh,
you can check that out first.
As an ebook or?
Yeah, I think, for Kindle.
Okay,
yeah, Kindle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think the price was about $2 lower there. If you want to do that, you can check that out.
Okay, good to know.
Yep. And that's it for the news.
Alrighty. So, first topic that we're going to discuss is?
Yes, the upcoming tour.
All right.
Yes, and this is interesting. Both Lou and I are going to visit. I'm going to New York and you're going to Toronto.
Yep.
And I have some figures here. There's 10 stops on the tour. That's done over 11 days. So they will do one stop every day except for October 4th. And the total of how many can visit on these stops, the place that takes the least visitor is in Sarasota, and they take 400. And the highest number is in Milwaukee, and they take 2,400. So the total of people who are going to see Stephen and Owen on this tour, if they sell out, will be 11,272 persons. So there will be a lot of people who have seen them during this tour. But what you can expect from this tour is no signings. Earlier, King did signings on these book tours. I think that's on some tours he did signings on all stops, and on some he did just a few signings, and on the others there were, I don't know if there's always been 400 pre-signed books, but I think that's the number that's been the going number for the last tours at least.
Yeah.
And what that means is that Stephen and even Owen, though, this tour, since they're doing together, will pre-sign 400 copies of the book for each stop they do. So a total of 4,000 books will be signed. And these books will be distributed at random when you leave the arena afterwards. And the people who distribute them won't know if it's signed or not, because they will be pre-signed and mixed up with the other books. So it's all up to luck if you're going to get the signed one. So, and I know a lot of people are a little bit pissed off that they don't sign at the place. But I mean, it will be pretty hard to sign for all these places and for all these people. I mean, can you imagine signing 12,000 autographs in 10 days? That's a tough job. So I think that this is the way they solved it, so that at least 4,000 out of these can have a signed book.
Yeah.
So the odds on how big the chances are for you to get a signed book depends on where you're going. If you're going to Sarasota, you are guaranteed a signed book because they only have 400 attendees there. So everyone will have a signed book. And if you go to the Milwaukee signing, you will have, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but 2,000 will not have a signed book and 400 will have a signed book. Everyone will get a book though. So you will get the book at the price for the ticket. So, and I guess you're as excited as I am to go to see this.
Yeah, this will be very interesting. And one of the normal things you get for these formats is that when it's just Stephen King, there's usually a host that introduces him and asks him questions. And I'm interested to see how they're going to carry out this tour because there's Stephen and Owen. I have a feeling that there won't be any hosts, and I'm kind of hoping there isn't. I'd just rather see the two of them riff off of each other. If anybody has visited us on site, you might remember we put up a link once where Stephen King and George R. R. Martin were together, and they basically just talked to each other without a host. So I'm kind of hoping that we get that with this, because you really want to just hear the two of them talking. You don't want a third person interrupting them. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in this tour, whether they're going to do that or maybe it's going to be specific from location to location.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it's just Owen and Stephen, because that would be a lot of fun to see a father and son conversation like that. So
yeah, if I would guess, I would think that was going to happen. And I also would guess that they are probably, both of them are going to read from the book, maybe a piece each. So I think both of them are going to read.
Oh, that's interesting.
From the book.
I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, I have no inside information, so I'm just guessing here. But I would guess that both would read from it and just not just one of them. So, but that should be interesting. And also, and I think this has always happened during this tour, and that is that Stephen has revealed something about the next coming book, which in this case is The Outsider. So hopefully we'll know a little bit more about it after these 10 stops. There's usually something that he reveals to us during these tours. So, but you have seen him before, right? How many times?
I've seen him twice, both times in Toronto. And the reason why I made my earlier comment about I just hope it's Stephen and Owen up there is it really, how well the evening flows really depends a lot on the host too. Because the first time I saw him, it was with a young author, writer, whose name I don't recall, unfortunately. And he was excellent. He really, he asked really good questions, and he basically just stepped back and let King go. And then the second time I saw him is with David Cronenberg, who we all know directed The Dead Zone and is a famous Canadian director. And that one wasn't as good because unfortunately Cronenberg was like an absent-minded professor, and he just sort of kept rambling, and King, you could see King was basically just chomping at the bit to answer the question, but Cronenberg's questions were almost twice as long as Stephen King's answers. So it really prevented the conversation from flowing, and we wanted to hear from King, not from Cronenberg. So yeah. That's something that's going to, again, vary from site to site, depending on how good the host is or not. But it's a lot of fun. King has, if you've seen him at all in any appearances, that he has a great sense of humor. It'll be really interesting to see how he modulates his behavior with his son. I don't think he will, but it'll be interesting to see how well Owen carries himself, because he doesn't have the same amount of experience as Stephen King has in being in front of audiences. And I don't really think I've seen too many videos of him, Owen King, in front of audiences. So I don't know how comfortable he is with that. Do you have any insights into how Owen is?
No, I don't really. I just remember now that I think Stephen, Owen, and Tabitha did some appearance on stage together some years ago. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think the three of them did something where they talked on stage. But of course, he won't have the same experience as Steven. But I mean, he's been doing this for ages. So, but I think that he will hold back a little and let Owen have his moment as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
because the first time in London in 2006, and that was there he did a reading, and then afterwards he actually did a signing in place there, so everyone could walk up with a book and get it signed. And also he did 2 in-store signing while I was there. And it was an amazing experience because I was invited to the press party afterward, where I actually met Steven for the first time. And also I was at the press conference where the press was, where he also did the signing afterward for the press. So it was a whole experience. I think it lasted for like 4 days maybe or something like that, with a new event every day. So that was a very big experience. And the second time was in Hamburg, Germany. And that was more like this one, where they were reading, or there was a stage appearance with a host, and Steven talked and answered questions, but he didn't do a reading because they had I think it was the German narrator who does all the audiobooks for King in Germany, who read from a new Dr. Sleep, who was the book being released at that time. So they were quite different, those events. But I am very excited to see this one in New York, and I think that it will be extra fun to have Owen there as well. I think they will make a good couple.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to hear the first reports once the tour starts, to see how audiences are responding to it, and hopefully we'll maybe get to see some video too, because I haven't seen a lot of them.
Yeah, and I will be at the first stop in New York.
Right. Yeah. So you'll be able to tell us.
So, yeah, exactly. I don't think there will be much videos because as far as I've seen, videos won't be allowed.
Right.
There's always people doing it anyway, but I know for sure that I will not be, because I don't want to risk being thrown out or something like that.
Right.
So I'm not gonna take a chance and do some video, but I'm sure there will be some videos popping up. Anyway,
is your night, is it reserved seating or is it general admission?
It's general admission.
Okay, so it's going to be a big lineup to get there early.
It definitely will, yeah. So I don't know how early I'm going to have to be there to get a good seat. Yeah, well, but I don't know if it's 700 people, so I'm guessing that I think you will see pretty good wherever you sit. It's not that big place.
Yeah, that's the same with our place. It's pretty intimate too. It's around 1,000 people, but we have reserved seating, so which I always like that. Like when I went and saw the It movie yesterday, we had reserved seats too, so we didn't have to rush to get there and get in line or anything. So yeah, that's good. If you get good seats, that's good. If you get bad seats, well, at least you're gonna know you're gonna be in a bad place. Yeah, the only bad thing with our venue was, and maybe because if you were a season pass holder or something, they had first dibs, but it was like half the stuff was already taken before I got online right away, right? So so that kind of sucked. But it's an intimate thing, so I don't think it'll be a big deal. I'm just hoping that they do some sort of rear screen projection TV things as well, so you can see them in larger than life while you're there. Yeah.
How do you see about this signing with pre-signed books and stuff like that?
Well, my position on signed books and that, that's not something that really turns my crank to begin with. I mean, I'd rather hear him talk above anything else than to get an autographed book. But I understand if you're a collector, obviously you want to keep your collection complete. And like for myself, I have a 1 in 3 chance of getting a signed book. But if I don't get it, I'm not going to be upset. I'm more interested in being there for the experience. I'm not getting a signed book just doesn't really do anything for me. I've just never been like, so I got the person's autograph. Okay. Like, so what do I do with it now? It's a memento, but I don't know. That just never turns my crank. I just don't really get excited about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of people bring books. They want to have their favorite book signed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I have a different view on that. When I was in London, it was Lizzie's Story that was the book that was promoted there, and I got a copy of Lizzie's Story signed, or a couple of them actually. And when I was in Hamburg, it was Dr. Sleep, and I got a copy of the German edition of Dr. Sleep signed, because I feel that is more, those books that you get signed at an event like this, at least I want to have them as a memory of this night. And for me, then it's more fun to have the book that's actually the book that they are promoting signed, instead of having, say, a first edition of The Stand signed, because that really doesn't say anything about the event itself, if that makes any sense. So I don't have any. I know a lot of people bring books to these signings hoping to get them signed, and I didn't do that. And I think that is more in my line, but I would keep them as a memory of that event. And then I think it's more fun to have the book that is actually the one that they promote.
Yeah. Well, I think just the fact that you're going to these, if you go to any of these dates on the tour, you're going to get a copy of the book, signed or not, is enough of a memento for me. This is kind of different. This is the first time you bought the ticket and you get a copy of the book. Usually you have to get a ticket and then buy the book afterwards if you wanted to or not. I think this is the first time he's selling the books as part of the package, right?
I think that on those occasions where they have been pre-signed book, I think you get the book in the price of the ticket.
Okay.
Because I think that's the case.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I know, like for my events, we don't get the book until after the talk. So you get it on the way out. So
yeah, I think that's the way they do it on every event.
Okay, so. Yeah, I guess because
I know
people would be fighting if they got it
yeah,
before. I
yeah.
said, I didn't get an autographed book. Oh, I did.
Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people are speculating about how they should best get the signed book. Some are thinking that they should be last in line so they can have some extra time and talk to the persons standing there delivering the book, that they can check and, it's not signed, can I change it, and stuff like that.
That won't happen.
And
I bet you all the books are
no,
sealed.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I bet you the books are all sealed, so you have to open them up.
Fine, so they have to be opened to be signed. So I think every book will be open, but I know other people had some theory about you could spot which books were signed because those have obviously been opened. And if you look closely at the spine, you could see if a book had been opened or not. And so there's a lot of speculation about that, how to best get a signed copy. I think you just have to go there, turn in your ticket, and get the book you get, and hope for that.
And I bet you they will have the books out of sight or in boxes so that you can't look at them and say, "Oh, I want that one." You're just going to grab it from a box or something. And I don't think you'll be able to scam them and say, "Oh, I don't want this one. I want another one." You'll just get the one you get, and that's it. Yeah, I think they'll be pretty strict about that.
Definitely at these bigger events. I mean, in Milwaukee, where they have 2,400 people, it will be very much just handing out the book, and the line will just pass. You won't even stop when you get the book. Probably you just handed it on the way. So you're just gonna have to hope for the best.
Yeah, I still think they'll seal them some way. Maybe like put a paper ribbon around it or something, so you have to break that to open up the book or whatever. But because I just don't think people are going to be allowed to open the book and say, "Oh, no autograph. I don't want this copy," or something like that. Yeah, I think there'll be something that prevents you from doing that.
Yeah, and then you can always keep the ribbon on and not break it, and say, "Oh, I probably have a signed book."
Yeah, exactly. That would be good.
Yeah. So anyhow, this will happen. It starts September 26th and ends October 6th.
Wow.
And 10 stops, and I will be on the first, and you will be on the second last.
Yeah.
So we will be reporting, and hopefully there will be a lot of news and stuff like that coming out of this. Also about Owen, what he's been working on. I'm sure he's working on something new.
Yeah.
So hopefully there will be a lot of interesting stuff. Hopefully both of them will be reading. Hopefully no host. And all, a great time and listening to them.
Yeah.
I know I will have a great time. I mean, I'm flying to New York. How can that be bad in any way?
Yeah.
So,
do you have anything else lined up for that event, or are you not able to talk about that, or
no, nothing lined up right now? No.
Oh, okay. All right. I only have one other request to make. If anybody that goes to these things and gets up to ask a question, please ask a good question. Don't ask him where he gets his ideas from. Don't ask him what scares him or what's his favorite book or what's his favorite character. Try to come up with something original. Because just go watch a couple of tour videos with King and you'll hear some of the questions he gets over and over and over again. It would really be nice if you got some good questions, and not just for him, but for the people at the event as well.
What would you ask him if you get a chance?
I would always... because he always says to be a good writer, you have to read a lot and write a lot. And I would always wanted to ask him, if you had to choose between reading or writing, which one would you choose? I think that would be an interesting answer for him, and a tough question for him to answer.
Definitely. Yeah.
So if anybody's listening that's going, if you want to borrow that question, feel free, go ahead.
Just credit Lou for it.
Yeah.
Tell King it came from him.
Yeah. I don't even want the credit. I just want the question.
Yeah.
Good questions, people. Good questions.
Yes, and we will be covering it. We will probably have news for... we don't really know when we're going to do a new podcast, but definitely we will keep every news that comes out of these stops. We will deliver them to you.
Yeah, it'll definitely be after the tour, because I won't be at home, because I live out west, and so I have to fly east and then come back. So it won't be probably till like the weekend after the last event. So that would be October 10th at the earliest, I think, something like that.
Yeah. So then we will summarize up the tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Our personal experience during the stops that we visit.
Yep.
And every news that come in, and hopefully listeners will tell us what how they experienced the event that they went to.
Exactly. Yep. Let's share the experience with as many people as we can, because we don't know how many more of these we're going to get.
Yes. And one last thing, if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, the only one that isn't sold out is Naperville in Illinois, and that is for September 29th. So that's where there's still ticket left. All the other 9 are sold out. So get your tickets there if you want to see this.
Yep.
Something in the mist! Dan. Cook John Lee!
Dan, catch your breath.
All right. Up next is...
The Mist.
The Mist.
Yes.
The final episode. We got to do it. We got to do almost the whole season in our last podcast, but we were like 2 days before the last episode aired, and so we couldn't include that in our review. And we haven't talked about this with each other yet, so I'm very interested to hear what you have to say, Hans. I know for myself that basically this episode ended where I wanted the show to start with in the beginning.
Yes, and I remember when we talked about this before we saw the show, that we speculated about if the pilot would end where the entire season ended. So we got there. It took 10 episodes instead of 1 that we first thought. And it was a strange show, because for me at least, I think it started pretty okay. And then it totally dipped in the middle. And I think it was the last 2 or 3 episodes, I actually think that they got a bit upwards again. And I think that they ended on a pretty good note. I think they are now on the road. They are where we want to be, or where we want them to be. And they got rid of a lot of characters, because I think that one of the problems with this show was that, at least for me, I think there were too many characters, or at least too many main characters that you had to keep track on. Now they're down to 2 groups. You have the ones who just drive out in the mist, and you have the ones going out to the military compound and looking into what that is. So I think that they had a rough season, but they ended on a somewhat positive note, at least I think. Then they have a bunch of problems that they need to sort out. And I think the biggest problem is the mist itself. I would say that to me, it's more like a gas that they have, a toxic gas that they have released on the town, more than a mist. And the things that happen in the mist are so way out that you can't make any sense of it. I mean, one guy is killed by 3 strange people on horsebacks, and another is having a kind of moth flying into his ear, and he grows wings on his backs. And I mean, these things are too strange for my taste at least, and we don't get any explanation to why. I mean, I guess they could be hallucinations, but I mean, people are dying and stuff like, so how are they dying if that's the case? So a lot of questions marks, but I think that they saved a little bit by the ending, at least, I think. So we'll see if there's more.
I wasn't a big fan of this season at all. And as I said before you started, the show basically ended where I wanted it to start to begin with. So I feel a little manipulated in that now they've left me with the hope that I might actually get the series that I wanted in the first place. But I do have the feeling that if they do get a second season, that they'll probably just end up in another location and spend the whole season in that one spot again. Mm-hmm. Because it's just, from a cost perspective, I can't see them doing anything else. They did the right thing by trimming a lot of the cast, but unfortunately in the process of doing that, they also rendered a lot of what happened in this season pointless. And I'm thinking specifically of the character that was played by Frances Conroy, who played the church lady. That's what I ended up calling her anyhow. Yeah. Natalie Raven. She went through this whole out of death comes life stuff, and then all she ended up doing was being absorbed by the mist in the end. And that was like, what was the point of her storyline? Like, it just was like, it ended up being a big waste of time because that didn't go anywhere. And the only reason it seemed to be like they got rid of her so that the sheriff could be free of her to go with the group at the end of the season. Though why that particular character got to go against other ones, I don't know why. Would have much rather seen his son stay alive and come with him. And why did they rescue her from the mist but let him die, like the sheriff's son die, Jay? So, again, it's this arbitrary stuff. And why was the mist letting the girl live and not letting the boy live, and all this kind of stuff. So it just, if you just don't believe in the characters, I said this in the previous review we did for the series, then whatever happens to them doesn't really... You don't connect with it. You don't really care. And as you said, Hans, I think the biggest problem is the mist itself was manipulated to do different things depending on what the episode required. Whereas in the movie, basically you had it was pretty clear. You stepped outside, bad things were going to happen to you pretty quickly. Whereas with this one, you could go out there and have a picnic sometimes and not be affected. And other times, if they didn't need you on the show anymore, you're out there for 2 seconds and you're gone. And that kind of storytelling is frustrating to a viewer because you feel like you're just being manipulated then. So. And then at the end of this, episode, they showed that scene with the army throwing people off the train, and and then somebody says, "Oh, they're feeding the mist," and it's like, how would you know that? So now they're adding this whole government conspiracy layer to it, which really set off a red flag for me, and I don't like that idea at all. I want the mist to be. I don't even really need an explanation for it, other than that it's something that is not good, and then if you go out into it, bad things are going to happen, and now they're trying to manipulate it into this being some sort of thing that changes depending on what they need. So I don't really have much too positive to say about it. And I was really annoyed that Adrian, what's his name? Is it Adrian? Yeah, Adrian was in the back of that army jeep at the end. I just thought, whatever. Like, he got the shit kicked out of him, but he still managed to crawl into that jeep. How would he know to go in that jeep? Like, like stuff like that just doesn't make any sense. So I was not a big fan of this adaptation of The Mist at all.
No, and I think that I feel it's pretty unlikely that they will have a second season. We haven't heard anything yet, and the longer it goes, the smaller the chances are, I think. So if I would have to guess, I think that this is it. I think this will end here.
This is it for The Mist.
Exactly. And I think that one problem was that they tried to do too much. They tried to have this military plot, and they tried to have all this intrigue with people and everything, and it just got too much that they started it and they couldn't really finish it because there wasn't time enough to finish everything. So it felt very, very unfinished and a bit dislogical. And I mean, the army thing, where why don't explain to the guy who's lost his mind what's happening? Instead of speaking in riddles, explain who he is, what is done, instead of saying, "Oh, you really don't remember me." No, are you sure you really don't remember me? He said he's lost his mind, his memory. So stop asking him and tell him instead. So, well, I think that is it for The Mist you said.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised myself if they got a second season, even though it was run on a smaller network. So that's probably the only glimmer of a hope that they have, because that network doesn't, I think it's Spike TV, doesn't have a lot of content. So they might be willing to gamble on a second season. But when you get things like the soldier Brian Hunt and the girl Mia, who seem to fall in love so quickly, and then when he finds out that he has to go with the army guy, they just break up and separate and go their ways. It's like, why even bother having them build up a relationship if that's where that was going to go? So it just like cheapened that whole relationship, which I didn't believe in it to begin with. But again, it's another example of the characters being manipulated to service a story instead of the other way around. Because if they were really in love, then they would have stuck together, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
definitely.
like it's stuff like that just drives me up the wall. So
yeah. It was just a sex thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yep. Well, less said about the mist, the better.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next thing we're going to talk about, and this is actually something that's quite appealing to me. This is the Dark Tower, the art of the film, and I actually have the UK edition of this. I didn't know that there was going to be a UK edition until I saw it. I think it's the same that you have, the US edition.
Mm-hmm.
It's just published by Hodder and Stoughton in the UK instead. And what this is I think it's best described if you take some behind the scenes extra material that you usually get on DVDs and stuff like that and put it in book form.
Right.
This is what you get. And for me personally, I think that I rather sit reading this book than seeing the movie again.
Amen. I agree totally.
Yeah, I think, this one is really exciting. I think I'm glad I didn't see this before I saw the movie, because then I would have been even more disappointed.
Yeah.
But this is very interesting. There's a concept art in it, how they wanted it to look. There's photos from the shooting. There's photos of the weapons, the characters, places, with complementary text going with it, explaining stuff. And I think this is a beautiful book.
I agree. Is your cover kind of rubberized a little bit?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, which is interesting. So it makes it a durable cover, right? Like I think it'll be hard to mark it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like this, if you look at what's in this book, you'll go like, where the heck was this in the movie?
Yeah. Yeah, it must be those 30 minutes they cut out it.
Yeah, like if you go to page 30, they have an awesome piece of artwork of the man in black standing over one of the fallen soldiers that we saw in the movie.
Yeah.
But behind him, you see like he's got a big army with him and everything like that too, right? Like, so like the scale is just off the hook on some of this stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. So like there's the beautiful sketch work in here, some really great drawings of the characters and their different costumes and whatnot. So, and it's broken down into five sections, and you've got the path to the tower, the gunslinger and the man in black, mid-world, Keystone Earth, and Part 5, the Dark Tower. And it's interesting that they focus on the gunslinger and the man in black, but there's no chapter for Jake.
Yeah. And do you know why that is, I think?
No, what?
I think that from the beginning, Jake wasn't supposed to have such a big role that he has in the movie. I think that it's when they recut the movie that they did. Yep. They gave him such a big part, because it's the same with if you look at the posters that's been revealed for the book, for the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's almost no sign of Jake on any of them. It's just the man in black. So I think that's a result of the recutting they did.
Yeah, I think you're totally correct.
That Jake has such a big role.
Yeah, and there's like awesome artwork in here of the Dark Tower sketches of it and the surrounding landscape, the field roses and all that stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
So even if you didn't like the movie, you should definitely check this book out, because it's worth it. Definitely. I think this shows what the movie could have been, should have been, but didn't. So it's an interesting document of that. So check that one out. And I also noticed they have some pictures of Roland's guns and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I was really tempted. I saw that they had an auction online, I think it was on eBay, where they actually sold the props that they used in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Trying to recoup some of their costs?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And some of the stuff they sold were actually Roland's guns. But I think they went for like $2,000 or something like that. So
that doesn't seem too bad, actually.
Well, depends on how much money you have.
No, I'm just talking in that, like compared to that book, which is $1,500, right?
Yeah.
It's the It book. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, compared to.
yeah,
And they had some that was in rubber that they had used on the set and different materials. So I think they had like 5 different guns or something like that. So
okay.
it was pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I mean, I collect props from King movies, so I would love to have one of them. But they were a little bit
Yeah,
expensive
absolutely.
to me. Actually had my eyes on one item that I probably could have afford,
Yeah.
and that was the frying pan and the frying spatula. That
Uh-huh.
if you remember in the movie when the man in black is in Jake's parents' kitchen frying up some
Yeah.
eggs.
Yeah.
So that I had my eyes on that for a while, but
were,
I didn't have
were the eggs included?
no eggs included, no. But I did
Yeah.
it was too much money, so I passed on it. But that
Yeah.
would have been fun otherwise. Could have used that in
Yeah.
Saturday mornings and fried my eggs.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, I think the book is totally worth it. And
Yeah.
I imagine because the movie hasn't done that well, the cost on this will probably drop fairly quickly. I would keep an eye on Amazon. I expect if you do, you might see it drop in price. But if you look at what's in this book, there's some beautiful artwork in there. And there's a glimpse of a movie that we lost because of
Yeah.
whatever happened with the re-edits and that. So I actually like this book a lot more than I liked the movie. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. And on a slightly related matter, the box office for The Dark Towers just broke 100 million, which we'll find out with it is going to do in one weekend. So it looks like it will get close to breaking even. So, which is good because if it ended up in the red, that definitely would put a damper on any opportunities for future projects, be it other movies or TV shows. We'll have to see. Still haven't heard anything more on the TV show, but I think they should, whoever the studios or whoever's going to pick up the reins on this, they should take a look at what was delivered and the box office return they got on it. And I think they hopefully will take into account if, look at something like it, and that if a proper adaptation had been done of the material, there's definitely an appetite for the material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also one last thing about the book. There is one done by King's UK publisher, and that one is probably a better buy for those of us who live in Europe, because you don't have to import it from the US, and that will keep the price down for you. So check for that one. From what I've seen, it's the same book, so you won't, even the rubbery cover is the same. So I think you'll get the same, but it will probably be cheaper for you to buy it from Europe if you live in Europe.
Yeah. I know we're probably not describing the cover properly, but like when you say rubbery cover, that must sound creepy. But I don't know. There's when you touch it, it just sort of it makes it almost feel like it's a living thing, but it's cool.
Yeah, you get the feeling that if you would spill water on it, you could just tilt it and it will just run off.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It feels like pencil eraser or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good description. Yes, it feels like if you rub on a eraser. That's a very good description. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. If you rub enough on it, you will come through the cover.
Maybe. And I even like the inside covers. It's got all the sigils on the inside covers. It's a well put together book. It's for the price and whatnot. It's got a lot of worthy content. I'm definitely not regretting buying it just because of what people think of the movie.
Yeah.
The book is definitely worth it. It makes a nice companion piece to the Art of Darkness book that has all the Stephen King artwork in it.
Yeah, and it would be a shame if people won't buy it because of how the movie went. So go check it out. It's a well worth book. So.
Yep. Alrighty.
Okay.
One more thing to talk about.
Yes, the main course.
Mm-hmm.
The movie It.
Yes.
So you have seen it?
I saw it yesterday.
Yes.
Or Friday night, sorry. I'm still processing it, and I want to see it again, but I was very, very impressed with this movie. I thought the main strength for me was the casting. I thought all the kids that they cast for the movie were just spot on fantastic. They had a real chemistry with each other. Andrew Machete should be congratulated for putting together such a cast. And I think his shots, selection and direction on this movie was really strong. I really enjoyed it quite a bit, and the audience I was with did as well. And obviously it struck a chord, and this, we've talked about this before, that this just seems like a movie that everybody was ready to see and wanted to love, and I think the reaction has proven that. And the early box office estimates, like even 2 or 3 days before, were like, well, it might break 50 million. Then they said 60 million, and then 70 million, and now I read this morning that it's going to almost make 117 million. Which puts it on par with the opening weekend for the latest Spider-Man Homecoming movie, which just blows my mind. Like, the response to this movie has been off the wall, and I think I need more time to process it, and that's why I want to see it again. But before I get into it any further, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, Han.
Yes, well, I saw it as well earlier this week. It hasn't had its premiere here in Sweden yet. It premieres on the 13th, so I got a chance to see it in the press viewing. And it's interesting because we were like 30 people in the theater watching it.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
Everyone was sitting a bit off. You didn't really sit beside anyone. So
right
at the row of seats where I sat, maybe it was like 20 seats all in all, 30 maybe.
Right.
And it was me and another woman who sat. She was like 10 or 15 seats away from me. And I remember 3 times during the movie, she jumped so high that I felt that my chair was shaking. So I guess that must be a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it a lot. And my biggest concern going into this one was that all the hype of it would have raised the expectations a little bit like when we talked about when Revival was released. All this talk about that this is going to be the scariest book King has ever written, and it wasn't. And even though it was a good book, you felt disappointed in it because of the expectation. And I had some fear that was going to be the case with this movie because all the hype of it. But I think it lived up to at least my expectations, so that's good. And I really, really liked Bill Skarsgård's version of Pennywise.
Yes.
And I think that it's not fair to compare him to Tim Curry because they did their versions of, it's 27 years apart, which is an interesting number in this when we talk about it. But so I don't think really you can compare them because they are far from each other, and I think they had a different take on what Pennywise should be. But I really, really liked him, and I think he managed to do all the stages. He was in the opening scene when he was talking to George, he managed to be the clown that didn't scare George, but he felt strange, and all the range up to really creepy, really scary, and really horrible. So I think he managed to keep all those versions of him. So those two were my main concerns going into the movie, and both of them were positive, I think. So I am very happy with the movie. They did some changes. I don't think that the changes were that big, and I don't think it really matters. The only one that I think that you could have some concern about was the way that Beverly was captured by Pennywise, and they had to go and save her and all of that. Yeah. But I think that, and at first I thought that, why did they do that? But when I thought about it, I think that it's kind of logic, because if you have like these 13-year-old kids, and everyone who has a teenager son or a daughter knows that teenagers are quite egoistic, and it's quite normal that a teenager doesn't going to say that, I'm going to risk my own life and save the town. So I think that was the right motivation to get them down in the sewers because their friend was captured. So even though it was quite different from the book, I think it worked, and I didn't really have any problem with that. The one thing I mentioned in my review on my site that got me thinking how they're going to solve it in the second movie is that in the end, Bill mentions that to Pennywise that you have no power over us anymore because we're not afraid of you any longer. And by doing that, they can beat him. And if that is the case, why would they be scared of coming back when they are older? They know that if they aren't scared of him, he has no power over them. I got some comments about that they forget about the past and stuff like that. So I think they...
Which...
Sorry?
which is not clear in the movie.
No, I know that you don't have that clear now, but that will probably be clear when the second movie comes. And so I think they will find a way to fix that. And so I don't really see that as a big problem. But that was something that caught my eye when I saw the movie, and I remember thinking, how they gonna, what's that gonna have for impact on the second movie? But overall, I'm very, very happy with it.
I circle back to the same point that you made. Like I just don't like the whole Beverly being kidnapped thing from a historical standpoint of it's always the damsel in distress kind of storyline. Yeah. And the way she was presented in the movie, she was actually the most kick-ass out of the bunch. She had the most attitude and whatnot. And they lost the whole slingshot silver bullet aspect of the storyline, which I don't have that much of a problem from that perspective, and because generally I really did like the climax. I like the idea of the eel float too, and them showing all the kids floating, all his victims floating up in the air. I thought that was really cool. But that you lost that, Bill, I think Bill says at one point in the movie, says, if we stay together, we'll win. So, and you could argue, well, Pennywise didn't pick up on that. But if he is shown that he works best when he's taking down his victims one at a time as opposed to in a group, why would he kidnap Beverly to bring them all to him? Because that puts him automatically in a weaker position, right? Because he's not as good as handling a group as he is at one at a time. And so I found it a little clunky on several fronts because of that. And you never got the sense from the movie that, like, when they were together as a group, that they were stronger. You know what I mean? Like, they should have acted, I don't know, a little more confident, a little more, I don't know how you could show it visually without getting kind of corny, without making them like kind of glow a little bit or something like, but just telling us that together we're stronger. It visually, I never saw that in the climax, that they were stronger as a group when they were on their own. So that's the parts of the movie that bring it down a little bit for me, because I understand you have to compress things and that, but I just don't think that aspect of the Losers Club as being stronger together came across in the climax. And I think that's what will ultimately prevent this movie over time from being considered a classic. Instead, I think it'll be considered a very, very good movie, but not a classic, because that feeling going into the final battle isn't there of these kids being united. And without the slingshot, the stun gun that they use for killing sheep doesn't have the same impact to me as the slingshot does, and especially it should have been Bev that delivered the killing blow. Like, I never really did you get the sense of what exactly caused Pennywise to finally be defeated? That wasn't really clear to me. Like, I think because even when Bill shot him the second time, there was nothing in the gun, so I think it was supposed to be his belief that he could use that gun to kill Pennywise, because when Pennywise finally dies or leaves, like, the top of his head starts to peel open like a cracked egg or something like that, right? But I just don't think that was clearly communicated what it finally defeated him.
No, and I think that maybe, and this is difficult because if you haven't read the book, you don't really know that there's going to be a second movie maybe, and you thought this was maybe the one thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, we know that Pennywise isn't dead and he's just drawn back. So maybe they didn't hurt him as much as it looked like, and he was redrawing himself to save himself. And so, but he did crack his skull up. So I don't know really.
Yeah. So, like, for me, that whole setup to get to that thing with kidnapping Bev, I just really didn't like that at all, because that's such a cliche. And then there was also kind of like moments once they were down there, the kids started to go off on their own. And I also didn't like that either, because that's also another horror movie cliche. Like, they should have stuck together. I wish they would have addressed those. And these are minor quibbles in a really, really good movie, but I just think that these things in the third act are the things that are going to bring it down and not make it, like, to me, it's not going to get up to the level of a Shawshank Redemption or a Green Mile or The Shining. It's going to be like almost up there, but because the third act deliver the appropriate feelings, because you've gone through this whole movie, you've seen like a scare piece, and then, some character building, scare piece, character building. Then the whole third act is one big long scare piece, and there's no modulation and the intensity of what's going on to a large degree. So it's a small thing, but I think it does overpack the final impact of the picture. But I really, really did like the picture. And unfortunately, when you're talking about things, you always tend to focus on the negatives. But I just thought this movie was really well put together. I really thought the cast was fantastic. I think the girl had the heaviest lifting dramatically, Bev, because of her storyline with her father, and I thought they played that just enough, just creepy enough. But then, and again, with her being kidnapped, I found it really hard to believe that she would overpower her father like that. And you and I talked about this in emails. It looked like to me that she killed her father. So why would she be allowed to go to some Portland? Why isn't she going to some sort of, jail or reform school or jail, whatever it is, penitentiary school for kids or whatever? But so, there's that element too. And he asks her at the end, says, "Oh, so you're going to Portland? Like, when did they talk about that? Like, they haven't seen each other for, because they all broke." So it was a little off in the end there. I don't know if they did some recutting or something like that, because it didn't quite flow properly from that moment that Bev got kidnapped until the end of the movie. It's just, something was off. But other than that, unfortunately for that segment, and maybe when I watch it again, it won't bother me as much because I'm still processing it. But man, oh man, that movie was pretty funny. And the guy that plays Finn Wolfhard, who's more like the Bill character in Stranger Things, he had some of the funniest lines in the movie for sure. Like when Eddie had to kiss his mother, and he said, "Did you want me to kiss her too?"
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to mention, why didn't they have the baseball cards and the spokes from the bike again? They didn't do that in the miniseries, and they didn't do it in the movie either. I just wanted to hear those spokes just once, the cards snapping, but they didn't do it again.
Yeah. And I think that what you say about the kids running off on their own, I thought the same thing first. But if you think about it, I mean, they are 13 years old, and if they see, like, when Bill see George, I mean, a 13-year-old doesn't really think that, oh, I can't run after my little brother, I have to stay with the others, so we stay together. So I think that even though it's I think that it was.
I get it, but it's a horror movie cliche too, right?
Yeah, I know. It is. It definitely is. But I really think that it's more like it would actually be in reality when you have like younger teenagers. I mean, they're quite impulsive, so it might be that way they act. So, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, well, especially like Stan. Yeah. There's no way he was going to wander off on his own. Yeah. Like Bill, you could see, because obviously he's trying to find Georgie, but I didn't buy that Stan would get off on his own. But it was a pretty cool shot though when they showed that creature chewing on his face like that. I thought that was well done, and I'm sure that will pay dividends when they do part 2. Yeah.
What did you think about the versions of it that was there? You have the lady in the painting.
That was probably the creepiest one. Yeah. The leper was pretty good. Yeah, looked really creepy up close. So I think they made that one really good. Yeah, and I like how sometimes Bill Skarsgård was playing Pennywise, and for a second his whole face would go blank, like he was forgetting that he was projecting this image of a clown or something, and all of a sudden he would start to move again, right? And his eyes, apparently, and Bill Skarsgård can do this in real life, his eyes were always off center from one. One would be sort of looking more to the left and the other to the right or up and down. And apparently that wasn't a special effect, but Bill Skarsgård is able to make his eyes go like that. So, like some people can make their eyes disappear or go cross-eyed. Yeah. He's able to do that as well. So I thought he brought the appropriate performance to this movie that differentiated it enough from what Tim Curry did with the TV miniseries, that it's 2 different interpretations, and I thought his was pretty good. The other thing, I kind of wish that at the beginning when he bit Georgie's arm, I was hoping that he was actually going to pull it off instead of bite it off. But now I'm sounding like you.
Yeah,
I wanted I wanted that to be more gruesome. But man, that shot of the kid crawling away from the hole with just one arm.
Yeah,
that was and then the arm comes out and pulls him in. But that's the thing I have to say too. Like, and I'm just getting too old, but I was never scared watching this movie, which is what I was hoping for. So like when you mentioned about revival, it was more suspenseful and a thriller, and I was really surprised at how funny the movie was. Yeah. I think I admit I jumped a couple of times myself, and I think they balanced it
quite well between horror and being funny. You had Richie being quite funny all the time, and you had other things that made it a little lighter, and then you had the horror with Pennywise and all the other creatures. So I think they had a really good balance there. But one thing I wanted to ask you as well, what did you think about the Pennywise layer with all the kids floating around? Did that mean that the kids were alive, or were they floating around dead? Or
I think they were floating around dead.
Yeah, because Pennywise eats. I saw it like Pennywise eats kids. So I saw it more like you know how a fly spins. A spider spins the net and just save it for later. Yeah. I saw that as his kind of net or his fridge where he placed the kids and pulled them down when it was time to eat someone.
I like that analogy quite a bit. I think that they're like because he had all that junk in there too, right? So I think that was like his sort of like spinning webs like a spider does and storing food. But I think it was also I think he stores that's the discarded husks of the whatever's left of his victims. Like he sucked all the fear out of them, and then whatever's left is kind of like the memories or whatever. So I don't think they were physically there. I think they just were like his mental projection of his victims. Because at one point, one of the when he's defeated, and I think it's Eddie says, "Look, they're coming down," but then but then they never say what happens to them after that, right? So because they leave. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and I was really happy that they didn't start to live there, and it was supposed to just hung there, and coming back to life, and I was really happy that didn't happen.
Yeah. So what were the shots that creeped you out the most?
Well, one was definitely the first shot when he bit off Georgie's arm. I wasn't really prepared for that being so visual. I know it was coming in some form. I know he was going to lose an arm, but I think that was really effective done. Yeah. And there was quite a few times when Pennywise popped out without any prior warnings. I like the scenes where I don't remember who of the losers it is that walks around with all the clowns.
Yeah. Richie.
Yeah, Richie. I like that scene. I thought that was really creepy, and the little 1990s Pennywise clown sitting there as well. Yeah. Yeah, so I thought there were a lot of both suspense scenes where you know something was going to happen, and I also liked the effects where you see Pennywise and as you mentioned, the eyes, and that he almost blanked out that he wasn't really there. I think that was really creepy because that was so very. It was so strange and unexpected. I mean, here he is trying to eat the kid, and then just whoops! It's like in a computer when the screensavers come on for a couple of seconds, and then bang, he's back. So exactly. So he's I thought he made Pennywise really, really creepy.
Yeah, so, I thought the lady from the painting was creepy. I don't really know what that character is all about. I've never seen that painting before, so I don't really know what that's referencing. I thought the headless kid in the library in the basement. Yeah, that was good. But the creepiest
I like the way it walked.
Yeah, but the creepiest shot was actually when Eddie fell through the floor and broke his arm. Yeah. And he had that bent arm. I was going, oh my God. Yeah. But I wish the bullies had done that, like in the book, instead of him hurting it at the house. But yeah. Yeah, and that is one thing that I missed a little bit about the movie. Henry Bowers, I think he disappeared very quickly. I would have seen more about him. Yeah, well, his buddies just disappeared totally.
Yeah.
Like once he gets the knife, you never see those other two kids anymore.
No, so I wish there would have been more about him. Yeah. And I don't know. I hope that he is still in the second movie.
I'm pretty sure he will be.
Yeah, but how on earth can he have survived that fall and come up? I mean, he has to have been broken a couple of legs and an arm maybe, and still coming up. Yeah. Maybe Pennywise throw him a line or something like that. I don't know. But, well, I wish they haven't disposed of him so quickly, because I think that character or that actor played him really good. I think he was he was really a bully, and he also seemed to be quite crazy. So I think he did a very good job with that character. So it was sad that we didn't get to see more of him. I would definitely have wanted that.
Yeah. He definitely was falling pretty hard down that well. But it would be hard to believe that he survived it. But yeah, maybe Pennywise cushioned his blow or something. But we won't find that out till the second movie.
Yeah.
The other thing I wish they had not resolved in this movie was who had written the poem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should have been left for this part 2. But I guess they didn't know at the time that they were going to get a part 2. But that, to me, the resolution of that really belonged in the second movie with the adults. But that was the other thing too, like we mentioned earlier, is it's not really clear in this movie that the kids are losing their memories of what's happening either, right? So
yeah, and I wish that there would be. I haven't read many reviews. I have to confess, because I wanted to see this without having read a lot about it beforehand. But it would be interesting to read a review of someone who hasn't read the book and doesn't know that a second movie is coming, who think that this is it. And see how their reaction is, because I think that when you do something like this, you either have to be very clear that this is part 1 of 2 movies, which they actually did at the ending. They said end of chapter 1.
And some people in the audience groaned when they saw that.
Yeah, okay. But I think that otherwise you have to be very clear that this is just the first part. There's one more coming. Or they have to make the first part still be standing alone in case they don't do a second one. Yeah. And so I think that is maybe some of the things that we would have wanted to draw over into the second movie. I think they concluded them here just so that the people who doesn't know that there's a second movie coming would be totally confused and not understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So I think you end up in some kind of vacuum almost, that you can't save it for the next movie because you don't know if that's going to happen, and you have to end it here. But how are you then going to, it's a hard decision where you're going to put it in which movie and stuff like that. So, but I think they did a good job. This movie could work on its own if there weren't a second movie, but it also could work very well if there's a second movie. So I think all in all, they did a good job in pulling it off.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the things that we've been talking about, those quibbles are they're small things, though I do think that Bev thing does affect the climax to a certain degree. But overall, I think the mark of how well it was done is that it doesn't feel like a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. It just feels like half an hour. And I don't know if there will be like a director's cut, but I would have liked to seen a few more scenes with some of the bully stuff and that. But I've read reviews or seen reviews from people who've not read the book, and they are really happy with the movie. And you always want to get as much as the book into the movie as you can, but I think overall they made good compromises as to what they left in and what they left out. So I would have liked another 15 minutes to flesh out a few things a little bit more, but overall I can't really complain. This is a pretty faithful adaptation of the book, or at least the part of the book, and I don't envy them the task of the second movie, because I think it's pretty universal that most people agree that the parts of the story with the kids are the better parts of the story in the book as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to do the second part, how much of the kids from this movie will show up in the second movie, because I think that's the strength of this movie is the kid actors, but they're all on the cusp of hitting puberty. So if they don't act quickly, there's no way that they'll be able to do too many background shots with these kids or flashback shots of these kids with the adults.
Yeah, and I agree. And I know Andy has mentioned in interviews that he didn't film anything with the kids for the second movie. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they won't grow too much. And I also think that the reason that the part with the kids is more interesting more interesting in the book is because that is the base story. It starts with the kids, and then when you go over to the adults, there's still a lot of them looking back to when they were kids. So the adult parts is really a subplot almost to the kids. So it's quite natural that is. But I think that might actually be a good thing that the adults get their own movie, because now they can focus on the adults totally, and maybe have some looking back on the kids, but they can really focus on the adults. So I think that maybe this one will be better for the adults.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too with the adults if they actually will make it a scarier movie than this one was.
Yeah,
because now they can be a lot more. Because with kids, you're always going to have to be how hard can you push it? Because I think most of the R rating for this movie is really around the language more than anything else.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There's a couple of gross shots that we've discussed, but really it's mostly around the language that the kids use in the movie more than anything else, I think. But with the adults, you could tilt it more of a horrific, pump up the horror part of it, right? Because now that they're adults, you can go a little further, I think, with the horror aspects of it. And because it'll be, I think it'll be pretty hard for them to recapture or recreate the comedy. Like, I'm sure there would be funny lines with the adults too, but with the kids, it was almost nonstop because they're constantly commenting on things or whatnot. So.
Yeah.
But I still think it'll be a big challenge, and it'll be really, again, like casting the right actors to play these adult roles. That will be difficult.
And it's always hard to follow up a success with the second movie. And I know that there's been a lot of suggestions online who should play these kids as grown up. And I only have one wish really, and that is to use unknown actors. I think that would be so much better, because I don't think they would use Bruce Willis, but if they did, you would always see him as a cop in Die Hard.
Yeah.
So I think for this, I would really wish that they would use, if not totally unknown, not high profile actors.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you have seen them in a lot of other stuff, and it's usually, I know they have to do it to get the money, the sponsors, the attention that those actors can bring. But for the story and for the movie itself, it would be so much better if they found good unknown actors to play these kids as adults.
And that's the other thing too that I'm glad you just mentioned that, is that this movie looks like you would never know it was made for $35 million or whatever it was. It looks like a much more expensive movie. I thought it was a gorgeous looking movie. And I imagine with the adult part, I don't know how you could keep the costs down as much, just because the adult actors would be paid more. And I think the temptation to go bigger because of how well this first movie is doing will be there as well. And I think that they don't need to go crazy big to make the second movie successful either.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see how that plays out. That's their problem to worry about, not ours. They've obviously made their money back already, so I'm sure they're happy. And I imagine that a lot of actors in Hollywood will be very eager for an opportunity to play this. I sent you that picture. I don't know if you saw it yet. I really like the actor from Daredevil, Charlie Cox, to play Bill Denborough. If you put the two of them side by side, I think you can really see both actors in each other's picture. So I think that would be the level of actor I would like to see cast for these roles.
Yeah. And I don't mind if I mean, it's hard to pick the right actors, but sometimes I feel like they want someone that is really known to get the attention for the movie, rather than thinking that maybe for the role, it might be better to have someone not as known. So that's my concern, that they will pick someone just to get the headlines that, oh, this one is cast in it. So, but we'll see. I guess once the first week is over, and we're going to see how much money they make. And I think it's just a formality for getting the green light on the second movie.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and once they get that, we will probably start seeing some casting and stuff like that. So I would guess that before this year is over, all 7 have been cast, I think. And the shooting probably will start sometime early next year.
Yeah, I would think if they want to use the kids for any flashback scenes, they really have to start filming next year for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so summarize. Second movie of the year is good.
Yep. Very good.
We have one bad, Dark Tower, and we have one good, It. And we have 2 more movies coming up before the year is over, 1922 and Gerald's Game. We have one TV show that didn't do so well, The Mist. And we have one that at least I like. I think you like it too, as far as you've seen, Mr. Mercedes.
Yeah, it's still been a bit slow. I wish they would introduce Holly. I'm getting impatient. So, I think the show, and I think in the book too, it doesn't really take off until she comes onto the scene as well. So we'll have to see. But it'll be interesting now in the wake of the success of this It movie, if this will break the logjam on some of the other projects that we've been waiting to hear words for, especially like The Stand. I think it's probably the highest profile one that we wanted to hear about, that 4-movie project for that one. I'd like to hear some traction on that again. Unfortunately, it's Josh Boone, right? He's been working on some other projects right now, including Revival, which we haven't heard anything about either. But I'd much rather see out of anything that's out there The Stand. And I guess for the director of this movie and his sister, who worked together, Angie and Barbara Machete, they also wanted to take a crack at Pet Sematary. So it'll be interesting to see if anything's going to come about that as well now.
Yeah. I think that they could probably do a great job with Pet Sematary. But if I could wish, I would wish that they would do a new movie and not one that's already been done. I think that we should get more new movies, and I mean we have the others, and granted that this It version is better than the original movie or miniseries, but I think that it would be more fun if they go for something new.
Yeah, such as pick a project. I'm putting you on the spot. I know.
Well,
you have to look at your stack of books on the shelf.
Yeah, I would like to see the Long Walk.
Yes, I agree. That's a great choice. Yes.
Yep, that one or Insomnia. I think
Insomnia, I think, would play better as a TV show because it doesn't have the big action pieces, right?
Yeah, but they can do a TV show as well, if you ask me. So Andy and Barbara.
I would think maybe. That's hard to say. Yeah. Because most of the ones that we wanted to see have already been made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I can't really think of one that hasn't been made yet besides The Long Walk.
Yeah. Let them make Long Walk for the movies and Insomnia for TV.
Yeah.
That will tie them up for a couple of years, and the second It movie. So.
Yeah, I don't know if Castle Rock could do, but I'd like to see an adaptation of The Raft done again too, like a good one with better special effects that they can do. That's a good 1 hour episode of some show, anthology or whatever that could be done. But those would get my votes.
Yeah. Okay. So this has been a long episode, but I think we are coming to the end. And for the next one, I suspect that we will be talking about the tour.
Yes.
And Sleeping Beauty.
And Mr. Mercedes.
And Mr. Mercedes, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, so that'll probably be the earliest more than a month from now because we'll both be traveling and whatnot. So hopefully this will tide you over. But yeah, we've been waiting for these 2 big movies to come out, and now they've come out. And I think we're pretty happy with the results for It. Dark Tower, as you mentioned, Hans, has been very mixed reception. And we'll just have to see how the rest of the year plays out. But Sleeping Beauties is coming out before the end of this month as well. So still a lot of great things to look forward to in 2017.
Yes. And with that, we wrap it up for today.
And let's see if we can get it right this time.
Yes.
Go.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
But
stay scared.
Yes.
That's how you do it, baby.
That's how you do it, yes.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.